Hello, I'm Jason Russell from Critical Dice, and welcome to the Fable 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. You're watching the Duke City Chronicles actually live today, and you can watch us here on Fable 42's Twitch channel, Friday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Welcome to our very special, actually live Q&A session. We just kind of wrapped up our last hunt, kind of a series of episodes for a kind of single story called The Infestation, which was the 8th hunt we've done. And I wanted to take a little breather here following UkadorCon because everyone was very tired. But also this is a great time for us to kind of ask some questions from among ourselves and some questions from you in the chat about Monster of the Week in general and about the story so far. I saw one question in the comments. Could you explain the whole story so far? I wasn't paying attention, which I feel that on a unique level, and I can absolutely do that. So I know that my players here, they brought some questions. I know I have some questions, ironically. But go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat. Your questions will trump ours every time, and so they take precedent. Before we go any further, though, does everyone want to do their quick intros, just so everyone knows who we are? Bridget, why don't you start off?
Hi guys, I'm Bridget. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at string_theories_. You can also find me here on Wednesdays in the Realms of Ukador, where I play a large bird named Cree. And in this game, I play Suki Buchanan, who is a mind-reading, dead people sassing, heavily tattooed art professor at the University of New Mexico.
Excellent. Diane.
Hey everyone, my name's Diane. You can find me online at The Pretty DM. You can find me here on Fabled 42 Mondays, DMing my own show, Wednesdays on Realms of Ukador, Fridays for Duke City, and starting tonight, Fables of Gallia, Saturdays for Fate of Ukador, and any other night that we are streaming. And for Monster of the Week, I play Katia Rose. I'm the Monsters Playbook, half vampire, half human, into socializing and her phone and this guy who doesn't even exist at this moment in her life.
Yeah, I hate that.
Isn't that just the worst? You're into a guy and all of a sudden he doesn't exist. He hasn't been forgotten.
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time, I'd have 2 nickels. I mean, it's weird that it happened twice. Yeah. GW, why don't you go ahead?
Hey everyone, I'm GW. You can find me on IG and Twitter under GW005, 2 B's, 2 zeros. You can also find me here every Friday in this time slot for Duke City as I play Quavon Whispers, aka Q, who is basically just the team's angsty, edgy angel boy. He is the divine playbook, so his powers are like very like his wings let him teleport. He can also make weapons out of light. That's kind of like his main thing. He can also heal, but he just kind of ends up fighting more than healing. He's working it out. Yeah. Oh, and also you can hear my voice on Clarion Dawn, which is an sci-fi audio drama where I play a interesting character who is a poet engineer in space. Why? Find out. You can go to clariondon.com or any of your favorite podcast platforms, and that's me.
To GW's point, you won't find out. I've listened to it twice. It is an amazing podcast, though. But you do, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Chris, go ahead.
I'm Chris Solo. I'm playing Riley Reed. I am the eccentric expert in this group. I am the only normal human, non-special person here, which isn't innately true because I casted a fireball the last go around, and yep, I did a thing. The detective is going to be he might win that bet they have if I'm a wizard or not. I got
Oh my
nothing.
gosh.
Andy Reid,
Wow.
Resident Wizard.
Wow.
And I'm Jason Russell. You can find me online at Critical Dice on Instagram and for some reason TikTok. You know what? Enter into the chat !critical. We'll give away a set of dice at the end of all this. So let's do this. GW, I feel like you have like a litany of questions, and I feel like maybe letting you have the first go around here might be the best way. So while you're looking at your list and choosing the first one, to give the quick recap, our hunters are in Albuquerque. They know the secret history of the world, that the things go bump in the night are real, and they have stepped up to bump back. They have fought things like paintings that have come to life, the child's scary tale of La Llorona, who drowns children. They fought and defeated her. They have fought a golem that on the steps of the University of New Mexico's library. They have been shunted into an extra-dimensional space, a shadow plane of some sort, where Riley got trapped and had to rescue him. They met the three fates and brokered a deal which totally didn't cost them more than they were willing to spend. They've met up with other professional monster hunters only to be betrayed. They've met vampires. They have talked to an ancient artificial intelligence and talked it down from a ledge. They have encountered a supernatural arms dealer / thief, and in our latest arc, been blown back through the use of nuclear energies, angel magic, and mental telepathy back to 1945, where the party currently is. So that's kind of the quick, shortest way I know how to do all that, but it's been an eventful time for sure. Oh yeah, and also there's Larry the Yeti that Solo met during one of the more ill-advised moves he's ever taken. I love how there's like a Yeti in like every Fable 42 show right now, of some kind. There's like Elsgon, there's Larry. I feel like there's more. Anyway, all right, GW, I'm gonna pass it to you, and you can ask us some questions.
Do we need to replace Fabio with Larry the Yeti?
Yeah, Diane, it's up to you. I mean, you're in charge of Legends. You can do what you want.
We are in the snow area. Please don't say that, Jason.
I'll say what I want.
It was in season 1. There were Yetis in season 1.
There was.
Oh, yeah.
So I stand corrected.
Thank you. Go ahead, GW. Save us.
So my first question is for you, Keeper. Where did this idea of explosions power kind of amping up Q's teleportation powers, where did that idea come from? I would have never guessed it if you didn't like tell me like later on, like off screen, like that was a thing. I was like, oh, I guess so. Where did that come from?
It came out of a moment of opportunity. So the first time this happens is in the Order, when spoilers, the Order turns heel and starts attacking our party members here. Riley shoots a rocket-propelled grenade like at point-blank range at someone and says their safe word, which is cowabunga. And GW rolls to grab him in time and just in time and teleport them away, which is one of his powers. He can only go places he's been before or to people he knows. But when he rolled Angel Wings to teleport, you got a terrible roll, I think, if I remember correctly. Like
it was a series of terrible rolls.
Mm-hmm. It was. And it was almost a joke, really, because every time I would give an example to my players of how a mechanic would work, I would say, so say like you're fighting this Yeti or da-da-da-da. And eventually they called me on it and they're like, Jason, are there Yetis in Albuquerque? And I'm like, no, that's fine. And I decided, okay, you know what? Just as an inside joke, I'm going to put a Yeti. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that, where there's an explosion going off right at the moment of teleportation. And I got to put them in a weird, unfamiliar situation. It teleported them to Alaska, where Riley had been before, and they meet a Yeti who he had met before, which I made up on the spot. And then that gave me a door because I knew I wanted to send you guys to 1945, because with so many things with Albuquerque, how it's such a weird place, it doesn't start now. The weirdness starts way back. I mean, even further than this, but the fact that in real life, there were people like Frank Hibben, and there were Russian spies, and the Manhattan Project is here, and Los Alamos. Like, it's a long history of weirdness. And I was like, well, how can I get them back there? And so I made that episode where Doris Payne steals the uranium explicitly to get you guys to 1945, because I had established that giant explosions cannot cue off course. So that's kind of where that idea came from. It started as a joke, and then gave me an opportunity as a storyteller to expand the story.
You hear that, Q? It's not my fault.
Oh, it's absolutely your fault.
It's your fault. It's 100% your fault. You were the one who gave him that opportunity. That was you.
Saved your
Nice.
life.
Did I save your life?
No, equal. Saved each other's lives.
Okay.
I've got a question here from chat, from Salty. With this style of game, how much are you making up on the go per session versus how much is planned? Yes. The answer is yes. A lot of it goes according to plan, believe it or not. But like with anything, there's a lot of improvisation that happens. So I'm just trying to think back to an older episode. There's a lot of things where I left stuff out. I'm just like tearing out like ideas. But there's a lot of stuff that like with the example of the explosion, I didn't expect that to happen. And as a result, he got 3 rolls for teleportation bad in a row. And him ending up, and do you understand where you ended up, GW? When you, after the 3rd failed teleportation roll, you ended up in a place that was nowhere and nothing?
Yes.
Okay.
But I saw like different things of possibly my guardian angel.
Yeah, you kind of like saw a essence of Dimphna.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't planned, of course. Now I knew that about Dimphna, but when you did 3 things in a row, I was like, this is a perfect chance to do that. So a lot of stuff that happens, I have it in my back pocket of things that I know about this version of Albuquerque, so I can pull them out. But I'm just trying to think if there's a time where you guys did something completely buck wild, where I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
There's been a few, I think.
What kind of things, Chris? What can you think of?
What was that moment? Me going inside with Doris, or was her name Doris?
Yeah, Doris Payne, the
So
sorceress?
that's where I got your mom's name from. For whatever reason, Doris was in my head. Just to find
for Felix in Realms, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole scenario, like we kind of planned and we talked about it, but then it kind of went to hell, and then quickly.
The fact that you snuck in by yourself to face this magic user was not according to plan. And also, I'll give you this: when you just straight up banished the Oni, I was like,
oh yeah.
You gave me a magic book.
I was not expecting that. And you like rolled a 12, and I'm like, okay, it works perfectly. Dang it! Why did I knew that the book that I gave you, this magic book of spells, was going to throw an even larger monkey wrench into things than there already are. And I was like, no, I think I can handle this. I'm not gonna like test this. I'm not gonna like load balance this book. I'm just gonna do it and see what happens. But yeah, because the thing is that I needed Doris to escape for this to work. And so when you got rid of her distraction, that made it a lot harder, but it led to this great scene of Q following her down I-25.
And we wouldn't have the bridge demon if you didn't have that.
I know. And now I have a new cryptid to play with, the bridge demon. So that was a lot of fun, actually, to do. So yeah, so some of the things I didn't plan it, but most of the time when it's improv, it's stuff that I did consider or things that I already know to be true, and I just see opportunities to pull out those threads and use them in those gaps. So I hope that helps. But yeah, this game style is even more so than D&D really lends itself to improv, because there's a lot of off-label use of powers and questions and those kinds of things. So I really enjoy it.
I actually have a keeper question that would go off of this question.
Yeah.
Have there been any sort of like a buck wild moment happens and you have to like toss like the tear out the piece of the the page of the notebook that we were going to do that you were like kind of sad to see go? Were there any moments that you were like, they stabbed him, I gotta die, I gotta change this total thing, that you were like?
There's two things that come to mind. There's one that I tore out and one that I had ready, but it never happened, but that was okay. So the thing I tore out was when you guys were doing the name, this is when you meet Eubank at Hibben's house and you fight the golem, that had time permitted, you guys would have had a chance to take the fight to him, to the golem. And he would have been in his trek from out in Los Lunas, south of town, to UNM. The golem would have threatened a bridge full of people by destabilizing the bridge, because he's traveling under the bed of the river, or the Rio Grande. And you guys were going to have to save people and maybe fight the thing too, in a really populated and kind of exposed place. But the time didn't allow, and so Eubank as an NPC kind of was like directed it away from that possibility. And it was one of the few times where you guys only encountered the monster once at the final kind of showdown. But I think when it started collapsing the basement at the library, that was kind of a prelude, but those two things were really closely connected. There was another version of how the nuclear explosion could have gone that I am hesitant to talk about. But if you guys hadn't to try to teleport it out, there was another way that story could have gone that did not end up with the story being over. That's all I can say about that. It was going to be really fun. It was going to be kind of buck wild. It wasn't my preference, so I'm glad that happened the way it did. But yeah, there's some other machinations.
Hear that,
going
Q?
on.
He said he was happy how it happened.
You couldn't even repeat what he
You
said.
would
You
have
couldn't
to
even
make a
repeat.
deal with Sunny to help bring us back. I mean, there you go.
We would have all been ghosts. Suki would have just channeled everybody back there.
There is a
Story's
big.
not over. We're just all ghosts now.
So in Monster of the Week, there is a move called Big Magic, which can bring people back from the dead. But that's not what I was thinking of. But there's a lot of options. There was a lot of options. But yeah, great question, Bridget. Yeah. Any other questions, Q, or from other folks?
I have one for Riley.
Oh yes, please.
Or Solo.
Hold on a second.
Chris,
Hold on.
get off the phone. So
Chet can't help you now.
No one can. I have no service.
Chris,
I'm looking
what is Riley's plan for the for the Avi situation? Like, what's the artificial virtual intelligence? What is he planning to do with that kind of useless bot that watches TV?
Useless bot? I kind of see that robot like a mix of Home Chick from The Fifth Element and Johnny Five. So
Aww.
Lilu?
yeah, Lilu. So you remember when Lilu was watching the internet and terrible things happened? That is exactly what I hope Jason's going to do, because that robot is literally absorbing all the terrible things that we have done as a population, which I wouldn't assume an artificial intelligence would be like, oh yeah, that's cool. You know, like misuse of robots and all sorts of things, right? So that's where my mind's going. So Riley is always thinking about that specifically. But also selfishly, he wants a Knight Rider, cool partner robot in crime thing, where it could assist us with doing anything. So like my endless pockets will become even more endless because I have a robot that has stuff too.
Yeah, Riley has a fanfic he's working on where it's like he and Avi just like fighting crime together.
And there's music like Starsky and Hutch music, like
No, more like a
Turner.
Kronk from Emperor's New Groove, like bum, 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 bum. And at the end of every episode, Detective Grant is like, "Great work, you guys." He sounds like an old, like, Boston cop for some reason.
Oh god.
I did say it was a fanfic.
That's amazing.
I also like that you assume that Riley has plans.
That's why I
I
love
think that's pretty good.
I think maybe it's let's assume, and maybe I'm just hoping he does.
So Riley has plans. Like I always have. Like this is how solo works too. It's how I DM. It's how I play. It's how everything. How I just operate in the world. Like I'm aware of everything. So I'm aware of that potential threat. I'm aware at some point Katya's BFF who better might come back. I'm aware that Q might have another mental breakdown or might go a certain direction. I'm aware that Suki's husband's going to come back as a big bad in the future because she didn't put a seatbelt on him or what. Well, like I that's what Riley thinks about all the time. Riley is like Batman. He has a contingency for everybody, even Chet. Riley doesn't trust the Order. Like Riley has plans upon plans, but it's more like a giant spider web outline. And I'm like, oh, we're going this way. And then I become tunnel vision, which is what happened with that whole last fight. Riley literally, you saw me as a player start to take myself out of the role play because Riley was like, okay, we're going to go fight this creature that has a lot of things and everyone else has really strong pyros. I don't have my thing. I'm going to fireball him. Like that's literally what he was thinking about. And that's all I thought about. So it is very reactionary, but there is a path that he does somewhat. The train of thought that is ever evolving, I guess.
Collapsing possibilities, yeah.
Yeah.
Bridget?
I can't believe this has happened again, but a second one of my questions has just been brought up by a different answer.
I love it.
The webs, they go everywhere.
She's connecting the dots. She's connecting the dots!
The whole time! But Matt, this one's for Katya. How do you feel about, like, your pal Victor, I think his name was, that bit you and turned you? Are you, like... Do you, like, want to see him again? Are you, like, scared of ever seeing him again? Like, what is Katya's, like, whole feeling? Because she met that other vampire friend, so now
Ezekiel,
it's, like,
yeah.
Ezekiel. Now it's possible for vampires to be in Albuquerque. Is it, like, if you saw Vic again, like, what would Katya feel or do?
What would you do, Katya?
She knows him as Vic, so whether his name is Victor... and has any connections to whatever is, I don't know. But I think she would be scared. Like, she liked Vic. Like, they had a romance, a fling, not like a romance, a fling, I guess I would say. But she would be scared because of when she was with him and before she got fully turned, everything was great, and then there was vampire hunters and, like, all this other stuff was happening, and that's why she left the city. So I think she'd be scared, not only, like, what would fully happen if she actually got completely turned. Her deal right now is pretty nice.
It is.
Having the perks and not a whole lot of consequences.
I have a follow-up question.
Also, what they would bring. Like, he's a higher up vampire, so he'd probably attract vampire hunters, and she's already got one that she's having to deal with, Riley. So she doesn't really want to deal with more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
In the last hunt, when Katya just straight up fed on that guy in the diner with seemingly no remorse and just zero qualms, and her surprising wingman of Suki, do you think that Katya has any, like, deep down concerns about a loss of humanity? Like, she knows she's not fully vampire, but do you think that ever kind of enters her head of, like, is this a spectrum, or am I in one spot in this transformation? Like, do you think that's a concern of hers, or she didn't really think about it?
I don't think she's thought about it, honestly. She's had a pretty cushy life up to this point, and then she had to flee. So I think she'd have to be hit hard with something like that for her to think about it. Like, seeing the consequences firsthand of, oh my gosh, I fed on a live, living person. Right now, she's used to just like drinking from, the drained bodies that she works on at the morgue, which, although could also be seen, loved ones having their loved ones being drained and someone consuming the blood. Some might not like that.
Right, like, and getting used to looking at humanity as a delicious Capri Sun might dehumanize people.
Yeah, but I think she would have to actually experience that for her to think about it at this moment.
Interesting.
Just because she's not been on that other side.
So, to those points, I'm not sure if Q knows, but how long are you two going to keep that a secret from Riley?
Oh, that she bit somebody in the diner?
That she fed
forever.
So she fed on a live person.
Look, it ain't my secret to tell, so.
I mean, I don't think that Katia would ever tell, especially not Riley, who literally told her that he killed all the vampires in
Which wasn't true.
Which is super not true.
Well, she doesn't know. She
Sure.
doesn't believe it's fully true, but she's like, this guy obviously does not like vampires.
The only reason
Yeah.
why
Is
Riley,
not a
I think,
fan of
even
this,
trusts
so-
you and hasn't tried to kill you is because you say you
Lately.
drink the blood of the dead already. Because their bodies are going to be drained anyway and then thrown in the garbage or whatever. So you're just drinking the waste.
So, though, what do you think happens to corpses?
They drain the blood, they do certain things, and when they
They don't throw dead bodies away, right?
it's the blood. They throw the
okay.
blood down the drain.
I was like,
I was gonna say,
yes,
I was like,
there's a very special landfill for that. It's called a cemetery.
very special.
I'm not talking about the bodies. I'm talking about the blood. But so
Okay,
like,
because I took it the wrong way. I was like,
I see that as like you're not being wasteful, right? So like we leave a diner and someone has a plate of food and they left and Riley's gonna take a bite because it's gonna go in the garbage
Yeah.
anyway, right? So he views those two things very similar, right? And both are very frowned upon in society for any which way. But
yeah. And also, too, I think for
Yeah.
Katia, like, she's realizing that despite Riley's, occasional protests and boisterous comments, he's just now getting to a place of, like, trust or at least something like friendship. And I think she would know, like, that would wreck it, like, bad. And Riley doesn't always take bad news well, or is great at interpersonal relationships. So
there's a lot in a little bucket that I think is overflowing currently. But we'll see how
oh
that
yeah,
goes.
for a lot of us.
Yeah.
GW, you want to kick us off with another one?
Yeah, sure. This one is for this is for Suki. It was touched on a little bit before earlier. But I am curious, what would, because it's kind of already been stated a little bit or hinted towards, at least for me, that one of the things that Suki is constantly aware of or on the lookout for is the ghost or spirit of her long past husband.
Yeah.
What would she do if she bumped into his soul?
I think I think it would be an overwhelmingly, like, it's one of those, like, push and pull things where it's like she wants to see him so bad, because like the big part of Suki's backstory is that she was driving her beloved Mustang, they got into an accident, her husband Eddie wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He went through the windshield. And so Suki to this day is like, everybody wears seatbelts in my car. And she's a crazy driver, but she's a better driver for doing that. And so like, there's a huge amount of guilt that comes with that. Cause like, you know, this guy was like the love of her life. Like she's never loved anybody or anything so intensely. And so she like really, really wants to see him again and is kind of weirded out that she hasn't seen him. So I'm almost sort of functioning under the fear of like, he doesn't want to show himself to me. He hasn't forgiven me. He's never going to forgive me. But if she does bump into his soul, I think it's going to be both like heartbreaking for her because she takes full responsibility for the love of her life's death, but it would just be so good to see him again. And like, yeah, so it's just a sort of like weird sort of mishmash of feelings.
I'll just say this. I know exactly why she hasn't seen him. And there's already been clues in episodes that have come out.
I gotta rewatch.
I feel like I've seen some clues. I don't remember if this has been spoken or not, and you don't have to answer if it's not canon or whatever, but did you have your ghost seeing abilities before that accident, or was it only after that accident?
I wondered that too.
Yeah, actually, I like her whole backstory is like she comes from like old world Tennessee. So like I picture it as being passed down the matriarchal line. So like her grandma was the first person that she sort of was like, hey, are you like I'm picturing like baby Suki, like 4 years old, going up to her grandma and being like, there's a soldier in the corner of the room. And she's like, well, yes, that's Uncle Ted. And like, you know, blah, blah, blah. He hangs out here sometimes. Don't be scared. It's okay. The dead aren't here to hurt you. You're here to help them.
Yeah.
And so I think she's always had it. And that's why she's so comfortable with just constantly looking for them and not being startled.
Which
when
then
they
makes your pain and your situation even that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she sees everybody.
Yeah, I like that statement too, of they're not here to hurt us, you're here to help them. Almost like they're not here for us, we're here for them, as almost like a way of like how Suki maybe thinks about the world, which is why she would like help Katia, why she would like so quickly jump into monster hunting life. Like, I'm here to help. Like, that's my lot in life, from possibly even on high or something. And so, I mean, I think that sums up Suki really well in my mind. I think that's really good, actually.
She that was one of like the major reasons why she was like totally fine with wing manning the at the post bite in the diner, because like her whole thing is like she comes along after the fact. You can't unbite that guy. You can't undead a dead guy. So like all you can do is react in that moment and help where you can. He wasn't dead. Like, I mean,
he didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know that at the time. I was pretty sure that there was just a corpse in a bathroom, and I was like, "How are we're gonna have to figure this out?"
Well, she's just like, "Well, wouldn't be the first time. Okay, so here's what we do."
Okay.
We need a bag of salt.
All right, we need a bag of salt and a big tip.
So like $10.
$10, 1945. We'll slap a 20 down and we'll hope that they don't, immediately shoot at us. But yeah, like I think her whole thing is like it's in her blood to help. Her bloodline is literally like, if you are able to see ghosts, it's your responsibility to help the ghosts.
So when you were telling the story about the soldier and everything else as baby Suki, like like this whole scene flew in my head. It's like you walk up to your mom with some little trinket, and she'd be like, "Oh, where'd you get that, honey?" You'd be like, "Oh, Grandma gave that to me." Be like, "Honey, Grandma's been dead." Oh. And little Suki.
Little Suki, yeah, just like going around like finding treasures in the house, like
Like little Suki still wears the jeans and the flannel, like even as like a toddler is the thing.
Yeah.
I want to jump on this one from Chad. I know it's kind of a joke from Salty. Will y'all ever come across the Winchester brothers from Supernatural? I am totally okay with like doing that. Like, like they're not the Winchester brothers, but they're the Winchester brothers. Like, I think that's a lot of fun. But the reason I wanted to jump on that one is because I think every single person you guys have met is either someone I know or have seen in Albuquerque. Like, they're an archetype, you know. Like Detective Grant is based on a guy I used to work with, like to the T. Name's different. That's it. Other people, I just have the names of my friends. During the order, when you see those kids for just a moment running across the top of the rocks before everything breaks bad, those are my kids. That's my son and my daughter, because that's what they like to do. But it also let me give you guys a fake out later that you thought maybe the children were in danger when Katia goes to check on it and then gets vampire napped by Kyle.
She was baited.
So she was baited. Yes.
Is Supernatural good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's really good.
The best episode is the Scooby-Doo crossover where they actually go into the
Wasn't
cartoon.
a fan.
I haven't watched the whole thing. I just watch I look at lists of like best episodes of season 12 kind of thing and watch those.
Near the end seasons, it starts to get a little wonky, but all in all, it's a good show.
Yeah, a show can't run that long and do that. But yeah, so like everyone you guys meet are based on people that I know. Like I think I told the cast this off screen. Even Doris Payne, she is a real person who was a real thief back in the 60s. Like that's really her name. You can go Google her. Like she was an African American art and jewel thief, and it was awesome. And I was like, I'm going to honor this thief. This is amazing. So everyone is based on someone, whether it's their personality or what job they have or the way they look. It's all based on real people. The names have been changed to protect the ignorant. I mean the innocent.
Who is Sunny based off of? Sunny the Demon Bond Keeper.
Okay, so that's based on my friend Steve-O's brother, who does run that pawn shop and looks like Sunny. Reverse the order. But and though he's from New Mexico, has a New York accent for some reason. Because that's like how his bravado is. He kind of ends up sounding like New York. And he's like a big muscular dude in a bright yellow t-shirt. And he worked, at least he did till a couple of years ago, he worked at a pawn shop. And I think his name is Scotty. And they would always joke about Scotty's Pawn Shop. That's not what it's called. And I was like, Sonny's Pawn Shop, that's happening. So basically the moral here is I'm lazy. And
Jason, I'd like you to take a tape recorder and go to that pawn shop and hide it in there and hit record and then leave right before it closes to see what his real voice is.
Yeah. That's called illegal. Goofy bottle episodes, yeah. Other questions? GW, I like you kind of being in charge of the questions. So let's head back to you. Because these are all really good.
For Katia, what would... I know she's like hardcore, on IG and like posting things and taking pictures and things like that. What would one, out of curiosity, what would one find on her IG? Especially if they were like
question.
Especially if they were like to scroll back to your New York days.
Her.
It's all her.
Every single one's a selfie of her.
Same angle, same elevation.
At a club, in her apartment, like on the street.
Same face, just different clothes and different hair.
Just her. She is very vain.
Did Katia ever take a selfie with Vic?
That's a really good.
Ooh.
I don't know if he would allow her to, but she
would it show up?
Try.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I've established how photography works with vampires yet in my world.
Yeah, that's a great
question.
But
that's the thing is, like, I think that would be up to Jason, because I feel like if it was like that classic vampire lore where they don't show up in photographs or mirrors or etc., then Vic wouldn't allow her to take a selfie. Yeah. But if he would, then absolutely.
I think that there is one photo you have of you two together, but it's like, this is a weird word for digital photography, but it's underdeveloped. like he's kind of in shadows, like the light wasn't right, and you're like, okay, well, it's the best one I have of him, and you never posted it.
Yeah, because it didn't make the cut.
Yeah. I'm going to say canon right now. That's what you got. You got one half-lit photo of Vic.
There you go. So it's somewhere in her photo archives.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea.
Long time to scroll through that.
Yeah.
I love the idea that we've established multiple times that whenever Katya isn't actively doing something in a scene, that she's on her phone taking selfies.
She's either scrolling Instagram or she's taking a selfie. And then she's like, "Oh, I'll Google that."
Yeah, because in the last hunt where you were like, "Do I have pictures of me at Hibbins' house from the future?" And I'm like, "Oh, absolutely, you do. You probably have 30 from when you were in there." And I was just re-listening to that episode, and I'm like, "When was she taking these pictures? So inappropriate." But I also love the idea that on Katya's Instagram, there's like one photo somewhere that has something in the background that really should not be public.
Oh, for sure.
Where if you know, you're like,
oh,
like
yeah.
They're like back at the werewolf house, like she took a picture and there's like one werewolf foot in the bottom left corner from when they wrestled somebody to the ground, you know, or something like that. I've thought about that for a while, actually.
In the middle of the fight, just like, like quick pick.
Mm-hmm. That's the fan art I want, her flying in Gladius with this selfie, you know.
Ting ting ting! Before you're like finishing blow.
The art.
Yeah, that's the fan art I want. I've never wanted something more in my life.
Just wait till you see the cat.
So I wonder how many clues are in the pictures that you take that you don't realize are there.
Probably a bunch.
I know who does know though. Chet.
Yeah.
Oh, he was totally.
That definitely knows.
He follows.
He was
all
paying
of you.
attention, and he's on Instagram. We know that for sure because he runs Weird ABQ.
Oh my God, is he like looking at my Instagram, picking up?
Oh, absolutely. See, in my mind, Chet doesn't work actively; he works passively. So he's scrolling Instagram, and then later he's all ding, or something connects, and he's like, "Oh, because that, I gotta call Riley." You know,
and then he takes 45 minutes to remember where he saw that thing. He's like, "Where did I see?"
Mm-hmm. He turns back to the red string board, like, yeah.
Keeps going around the room. Wait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love Chet so much.
Chet's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to love him too, but I don't know if I trust him.
I love that I sent Chet a
You
phone.
don't trust anyone.
Oh, you're 100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like I haven't given you reasons not to trust people. I mean, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying, yeah, he doesn't trust people. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is that did I find it? I can't find it. Oh, there it is. That when we had Chet be a character, that Solo went and found 2 phones, and he mailed me one so that we could do those phone calls. It's so ridiculous, and I love it so much.
Best 12 bucks I ever spent.
Oh, absolutely. I love that Salty in the chat saying slaying monsters might delete later as a caption for one of Katya's posts, and I love that so much.
Our Angel Boy has not answered a question yet, and I have a question for
Oh,
him.
please, yes.
So one of my all-time favorite Q moments is the time where you teleported back home and your grandma was like waiting for you, and the sheer look of panic on your face when you realized that you got caught by grandma. What was going through your head at that exact moment? Like, what, like, was it like, oh God, I gotta figure out how to wipe my grandma's memory, or like, how am I gonna explain it to her? Like, what were you thinking?
Q was full on panic mode because as you all might know, he is extremely protective of his family, like just overly so. Even though, you know, his dad's in the military and he's like a really high up ranking or whatever, he's very protective of his family. And one of the ways to protect them, he thinks, is to not let them know about his abilities and the things that he goes out and does with you all. Because then they would worry, and then, you know, they would probably follow to make sure, and then it would just all go bad in his mind.
Yeah, House of Cards that would tumble down. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also with Q. That's also kind of his comfort area that they don't know. It for some weird way it kind of gives him just that cushion of comfort for himself, like a safety blanket. When he found out that his grandma knew something was up, he was it was like that just started to like, oh no, what have I done? I messed up. Da, da, da. She's gonna know. She's gonna be worried, and then she's gonna know, and then everyone's gonna know, and no, no, no. And so in that moment, he went full on like, I have to fix this. I have to fix this now. Katia knows how to wipe the mind. Suki knows how to like mess with the mind, and like his grandma can't talk since the stroke. So he was like, all right, Suki can read minds. We can have a conversation on the slide so she doesn't like we're in her head. And it was just going through this whole thing because he was just really nervous and scared that and one of the things too that I'm sure people have heard before, when someone has like a supernatural gift or what have you, it's like they're open to other things. It's not just the good things of the gift, it's the bad things also. So I didn't want him to open up for his family to open up and be like magnets for that kind of stuff as well. So in that moment he was panicking. He needed to fix it right then. He needed to fix it the next day. Like, we need to have coffee the next day with my grandma so we can figure out what she knows so we can wipe her mind. And that was the whole thing with that. And then once everything kind of blown over and his grandma seemed like really chill, and then he had that really nice conversation with you, with the help of you, to kind of figure out his kind of own abilities and where they may have come from her and her side or whatever. It just put him more at ease, and so he didn't like totally break down. But
yeah, and I had intended in earlier episodes for there to be like food or your bed made in your room when you would come back, but I kept forgetting to do it. I wanted to breadcrumb that confrontation a little earlier, but I forgot. And so it was actually kind of great that it happened during the order, which was a very long hunt, because you've got Katia's missing, the order turned bad guys, your grandma knows, and all of this stuff happening all at once. And the weird you lost your teleportation powers for a hot second, and then you have a vision from Dimphna at church because your grandma made you go, and or your mom made you go. But so I'm glad it turned out the way it did, because I all of that tension going on in multiple axes, both religious and family and professional, like it was a very satisfying time, I think, both from a storyteller perspective, but also from a viewer perspective. I really enjoyed how all that turned out.
Same.
Yeah. We've got about 10 more minutes here. So let's go see if we can't go through a bunch more questions.
I have one to start off. This is for Riley. So we make it a thing to kind of give flavor to things, and we don't like always just like say it straight out. But my question is, how does Riley feel about the book The Hag? I feel like I seldomly kind of hear him like look at it or use it at all. How does he feel about having that book?
Well, I mean,
he forgets he has it.
I do forget I have it, even though it's in red. It's because it's a code book, right? So it helps with that. I don't have my character sheet up, but it helps with that certain mystery check.
The Dark Past.
Dark Past, which I don't use Dark Past that often. So, because I don't feel like it's pertinent, and I kind of want us to figure it out without a hard clue. You know what I mean? From like, I've done it before, sort of thing. But I don't know. I mean, like Riley's in an interesting predicament with like everything that I've talked about before, which was going to be a question that I was going to ask, but I can lead into it because these are his thoughts. And I'm curious on what the three of you think, and Jason for that matter. But Riley is always, this is part of a solo thing too, because when I was training for Special Forces, I would go into a room with 20 people I would look in that room for 5 to 10 seconds. They would turn the lights off. I had to answer every question correctly. It's like 30 plus questions. How many people in the room? What color clothes are they wearing? Are any of them armed? Where are your exits? Improvised weapon, like all the things. So anytime that I'm out in public, it's why my anxiety is always so high, is I'm always looking and just taking everything in. And Riley is the same way. So the I think the code book is a good tool to like pause for a second, pause his brain.
To recenter?
Yeah, recenter, which is hard for him to remember to recenter, which is part of my and Riley's flaws. But thinking about that, with my knowledge of World War II and my knowledge of the 200,000 people that died because of those 2 A-bombs, Riley is legitimately fighting every urge in his body, even though he knows a butterfly effect would be bad because the war ended pretty much after we did those terrible things. What happens if we sabotaged it? What happens if we stopped it? Would the Russians bomb us? Would the Japanese invade? Like, would we be walking around speaking German? Like, you have no idea what would happen. But we weren't the only people, as we all know. Like, the Russians were trying to build the bombs too, and the Germans were trying to build the bombs too. And I don't know, right? And there's
the philosophical question is that those men at the Manhattan Project were playing God.
Yes.
Should they have been?
Yeah.
The follow-up is Riley now is in the past with future knowledge and could play God. Is it right for him to play God?
Did I do it to begin with? Did I try to do it to begin with? Right? Is it me trying to stop those bombs kills Riley and Riley doesn't go back to the future? You know what I mean? Like there's just so many different paths. But then Riley also thinks future tense, right? Understanding Japanese culture.
It would not have stopped.
It would not have stopped, but thinking about long game, like there's just so many things. Like retribution is going to come in World War III in the future, right? They're playing a long game. We have lots of things in our households that are made in China, made in Japan, and made in China. Like,
yeah.
We've all seen that. Well, we've all seen it, but that one '80s movie when all the machines came to life and tried to kill everybody, like the soda machines had a clown truck, the Joker
I
truck.
think that was
Transformers?
No. It was
It's been Transformers.
I can't remember what it's called, but there was an evil semi truck with a Joker mask face that would somehow activate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But so Riley thinks all these crazy thoughts. So I'm curious. And that was my question to you guys, is what do you all also have those thoughts, or are you just trying to not have an imprint at all just to get back because you're just too worried about a butterfly effect?
For Q, he's definitely worried about a butterfly effect. He's trying to not touch anything. He's trying not to mess with anything, not to talk to the wrong people. He made that mistake when he was trying to talk to the professor because he thought it was cool. Everyone else was talking about certain things. But yeah, he's trying to definitely not mess stuff up because he has people to return to.
Yeah.
And he wants to make sure that reality stays the same because that's
he keeps going back to the protecting your family thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Bless him.
I think Suki's kind of the same, where it's like, she's, because it might be a little selfishly, but like she likes her life, and she is always coming at things on the back end, like I said before, where it's like you can't undo things. Like, things have already been done. You can only react in the moment and help in the afterwards. But like, there is a big part of her that's like, oh my God, like we could stop this, but if we stop this, I don't know Eddie. And I don't know, I don't get to live in Albuquerque and talk to my ghosts.
Well,
and
to Eddie's point, you don't have any thoughts because Eddie's alive right now, isn't he?
Wrong Eddie.
Wrong Eddie.
Wrong Eddie.
Dead husband, not
dead
Eddie
husband
from
Eddie.
Not Eddie from Frontier.
Yeah, I'm talking about your husband.
Yeah,
Your
he's
husband.
not alive yet.
He's not?
This is like, we were born in the 50s. We were like post-war.
Because my thought would go like, you go him and you put the fear of God in him to never not wear a seatbelt.
You always wear a seatbelt. You listen to me.
They didn't exist yet.
I know
in 45.
True.
Yeah.
What's a
when
seatbelt?
they have seatbelts.
Yeah. Hey, Diane, did you want to jump in that? I do want to ask one last question as we're running out of time here, though.
I think that Katya, although it's not forward in her mind, she understands like the butterfly effect, whatever. But clearly she's not completely thinking about
she's not going to let it
actions
paralyze her.
future.
Yeah. No, exactly. Where she's like, yeah, she knows intellectually, but at the same time, girls got to eat.
Like she knows, but I mean,
She's looking at all the
she's
stores.
living her life.
Yeah.
Girl's got a selfie.
All right. Kind of a lightning round here. Here's my question. I put it in our chat, which was, what's one thing you really want to know? And what I mean by this is either what's one thing you hope you find out in the course of the story moving forward, or what's something from the past that you think maybe I could answer for you now? Like, hey, what was up that one thing you said that one time? And if I can answer it, I will. But this is like lightning round.
Is my brother alive?
I cannot answer that,
I know.
which is as bad as answering it.
I want to know about Ezekiel and my ancestor family situation.
Yes, Ezekiel has a good lead on how to figure it out. I know exactly why it is, and it's another one of the world is so weird you wouldn't believe how little I have to change category. And I can't wait for that payoff. So yeah.
I want to know the person that triggered my new destiny.
Your new destiny. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some things happen behind the scenes that, so his playbook allows him to have like one overarching thing, like he has to do this. And after he got back his teleportation, it changed. And the larger forces at play accomplished something that then made the host of heaven make a pivot. And you as their agent, it reflects. So yeah. So big bads are out there and they're doing stuff when you're not looking.
Okay.
Bridget?
This might be a little bit of a woo-wee-woo question, but the bridge demon makes me laugh really hard that we like created a new cryptid. I'm wondering if the cryptids in Albuquerque, if they're like tulpas, where if more people believe in them, the more likely they come to life. Like, will we eventually have to confront the bridge demon, or like, like where do the monsters come from? Are they already there, or is it like a tulpa effect?
No, that's a really good thing.
Question.
That's a great question, and I can only answer part of it. And with stuff you already know, Pima and Atotis, the snakes, told you that they hadn't seen La Llorona in years, and that it was strange that she should be here now. And you also know that La Llorona was attracted to the intense sympathetic emotions that Renee had that allowed her to piggyback as a host. So there is an element of belief in some of these things. But at the same time, Ezekiel the vampire doesn't exist because people believe in him.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, and I do have an answer to that. But yeah, it's good that you're interested in that, and I will make sure to work towards some of those payoffs. Chris, did you ask your question yet?
I did. I asked if my brother was alive, but that was kind of a funny
right.
cheat question. Am I really a wizard?
In your heart.
It's good enough.
Right. Yeah, in your heart.
In the hearts and minds of those who've seen you use the book.
Yeah, in the hearts of APD, Albuquerque Police Department, you are.
Did I actually save a spell
John
slot in the
John
future
thinks
because
you
I
are.
read the note saying don't forget the salt?
You'll get back to the future and find out.
That's
But and I actually do have an answer for that. Oh gosh, what was I going to say? Dang it. I had something along those lines about the spell slots and the book and the future. Yeah. No, I'm just excited for the next few sessions in 1945, and if you guys ever make it back, what will happen then, and really kind of ratcheting some stuff up as some of the Easter eggs and little plot points I've tossed out into the edges of the story start pulling that net tighter to come to a head. And I think it's going to be really, really good, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And I keep losing the thread of that last thing I was going to say, so I probably shouldn't say it. But yeah, so I'm having a ton of fun doing all this with you guys, and here's to some more creepy hunts and to exploring this weird wide world. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. And that we had our winner in the chat. Congratulations, Real Longshot, winning the dice. Make sure you get us in the Discord. And so I'll end it with this. Albuquerque's a weird place. Let's keep it that way. Thanks, guys.